Okay, we're going to be talking about a new form of energy that Basil J. Hiley discovered. There was a newly issued talk that Basil J. Hiley gave, or BJ as he was called by his friends apparently. This was just posted 6 days ago. It's a bit frustrating because the person who posted the talk interrupted him so much that she actually caused him to lose his talk, and then he had to find it again. She was inserting her own slides into his talk. As she says, they duel on it, and then he says, he wanted to try to finish his talk, but he ends up taking questions, about 40 minutes of questions for 2 hours. And but he mentions again how he had this fellow who was doing his music PhD was following him around. But there's a couple times where the person who posted his talk tries to insert her own meaning, and he has to correct her. She says that it's geometry, and he says no, it's dynamical geometry. And then she says, do we agree that everything in time is essentially happening right now at one moment? And he says it's more subtle than that. So essentially he's trying to explain a concept that is thoroughly non-Western, and she's trying to say that she's trying to talk about something that's non-Western, but because she doesn't understand his science argument, that she's actually being more Western than he is in his analysis of science, which is really ironical. So he's got this great slide here that's kind of the key concept, where he's saying that the non-commutative math that Pascual Jordan first developed is what is able to combine Heisenberg with Schrödinger via this secret de Broglie law of phase harmony. But the real factor is that he focuses on the unitary function, and a unitary transformation is considered unitary because when you multiply it, okay, that's what the definition. This is exactly the identity matrix that I've been focusing on in the past few videos on this topic that I uploaded. So in other words, Basil J. Hiley says there's hundreds of papers trying to prove that Bohm's model contradicts experimental physics. If you go into the algebraic approach, the non-commutative algebra, in fact, Einstein did this. He was emphasizing the algebraic approach when he gave up his Hilbert space formalism. See, he's going into Dirac with Einstein, but he was starting to get confused because this lady was like pressuring him and kept interrupting him. So this paper in 1931, Dirac, was about the algebraic structure, and he proves that the Schrödinger picture is only unique up to a unitary transformation. It's equivalent to Schrödinger. It's equivalent to Heisenberg. So in other words, this non-commutativity is what is unifying Schrödinger with Heisenberg. And so Hiley is saying that the non-commutativity is actually a new form of energy. And he's like, he's trying to tell them about it, but they kept interrupting him. So basically, he's pointing out that what is now called Bohmian mechanics is not mechanics at all, because what they call information is what actually they mean to form from within. And by forming from within, they mean literally like the vector mathematics has a new vector dynamic to it. So that's like the vector potential has been added to the momentum operator in the Schrodinger equation. And you get that just by breaking the complex mathematics into the real and imaginary parts using the polar coordinates. So there's no hidden variable, it's inherent to the Schrodinger equation. And so Hiley refers to his paper that he had just published on this about the Dirac-Bohm connection. It's puzzling to find the amplitude being part of the dynamical algebra. So in standard quantum physics, the amplitude is for the probability. It's based on the intensity, so it's only from squaring it. But what he's saying is that before you square it, there's this non-commutative dynamical algebra that includes the amplitude or the intensity. The quantum dynamic needs this key new feature, namely a mass energy density, which manifests itself in two related ways. And so the non-commutativity is not a hidden variable. It's actually just inherent to the mathematics. And so he's saying that it's not just subtle and it's not weak, because if you take the hydrogen atom, its ground state energy is all quantum potential energy. It's very large and therefore not strictly speaking small energy. So this is like a secret. This is what the recently deceased physicist I corresponded with, what was his name? But anyway, he calls it the super spin force, a newly discovered secret of why there is spin in the first place. So this is like on a deeper level than spin. So he's saying that this quantum potential is in h bar squared, and the problem is that both Dirac and Richard Feynman just tried to cancel out this h bar squared. So it's delta r over r as the amplitude and the amplitude of the wave function. And you'd think the amplitude would not be something dynamical, because normally it's just how the intensity is. So normally you just square it to get the intensity of the particle, and then you have this uncertainty of position and momentum when you square it. That's like the collapse of the wave function. But he's saying you don't need to have a collapse of the wave function, because the amplitude is inherent to the dynamics already. It's already a algebraic non-local process. So instead of the intensity, the thing is, it's got a dynamical meaning of the intensity. And that's why it's a new form of energy. And it's also, so this quantum potential is what de Broglie was calling the pilot wave. And the vector potential can arise in the case of an uncharged particle, and that's why it's a new form of energy. So then Professor Hiley realized that the Clifford algebra from the 1880s also realized this same non-local dynamical force. And so when he's referring to his paper, he was saying that the Clifford algebra allows to extend the Dirac-Bohm to include spin and relativity, and offering the possibility of relating the non-commutative geometry of M theory. So he's basically saying that this non-commutative quantum phase space, it can be underlie like every other kind of physics. And then he says it's more like what Einstein was calling Phoronomy. And this is where he mentioned the guy doing his PhD in music theory was following Hiley around because he was also studying Phoronomy. So the last email that Professor Hiley sent me in 2023, it was after this talk posted here, and he says, "Loved your paper on music. I have had some discussions with a Finnish guy who wrote his PhD thesis." So this is the guy who was following him around that he mentions like several times in his talks. And so I finally contacted this guy, this PhD musician or music theorist, and I emailed him my peer-reviewed paper. And then I just did a search on Phoronomy in music. And so this is the guy's talk. He actually did a talk for the Fetzer Institute. So what's really fascinating is when you look at his talk, he has the simultaneous realization of overtones as the Phoronomy. And so this is the non-commutative music theory that I've been talking about, but and he says it's the secret of the prime numbers, but that's what Alon Khan says also, that the prime numbers from the harmonic series are due to non-commutativity. And he calls it the invariance of music, and that's exactly the same term that Alon Khan uses, is this invariance of the non-commutative structure that's non-local. But he doesn't quite get into the music pitch details of the music theory, so that's what I sent him my my published paper that gets into that. So anyway, it's kind of nice to have that this other music theory approach by Timo Laho. And so when you look at the music analysis, this is how they talk about Phoronomy. It's as the interpretation of a curve in mathematics, stressing the act of tracing rather than looking at the curve. So this is what math professor Luke Hoffman is emphasizing, that whenever you make an external measurement in science, it takes time to make the measurement, and so there's an inherent time to reality that's non-commutative because it's an asymmetric time. And that's why you end up getting the future affecting the past in this non-commutative dynamic that's non-local. And so this music PhD is a professor at Cambridge, so I also emailed her about her writing on Phoronomy in music. And she points out that this it's inherently tied to the biomechanical and affective aspects of the musical production with the instrument. And so she has this book chapter in here in this. So that's why I emailed her, because I'm talking about Philaeus literally flipping his musical instrument around the lyre in order to lie about the music theory to make it into commutative music theory. So she's just pointing out that this is inherent to the production of the music. It's the connection of the production of the sound with the musical instrument as being biomechanical and inherently emotional, and therefore you cannot separate that with the music theory itself. That's part of the timing of the music theory. But she doesn't seem to have any concept of the non-commutativity, but she realizes that there's some kind of deeper connection going on as a you cannot separate the rhythmic gestures with the musical instrument from the production of the music theory. So this is what Basil J. Hiley is realizing. He's like, there was something about music theory that was the same secret of his physics insight. And of course, that's what I was contacting him about originally. So when we look at his mathematics, his physics paper, he just says at the very end of the paper that you don't have to have any collapse of the wave function. And so in his quantum biology talk, that wasn't part of the Fetzer Institute, it was part of the Emmy Institute or Emmy Foundation in Finland. He's just saying that this is the secret of quantum biology, also that our thinking arises from this negative entropy of the quantum potential that's doesn't need any matter for it to exist. So it's based on the biophotons in the brain that get turned around due to the thermodynamics inherently being non-local. And he says that this completely changes quantum biology, because when you rely on the non-commutativity, then you don't have to have any collapse of the wave function, which means the non-commutativity can self-amplify into the macro scale. And that's exactly what Pascual Jordan was saying originally in the 1920s. So there's no limit to the number of functions. We could choose to generate alternative pictures, and so many equivalent pictures are therefore possible, as pointed out by Jordan, 1926. So he cites Jordan, the Jordan product being non-commutative, and he's saying that this Jordan product this is the secret of this new form of energy that's non-local. The vector potential, we could follow Jordan, who explores more general unitary transformations. Okay, so this is why it's key to understand the non-commutativity, because it shows that this new form of energy can self-amplify into the macro scale as quantum biology, and therefore it's the secret of meditation. And that's what this lady's trying to get at in she's trying to understand Basil J. Hiley. Now, where's the Paris Center located? I'm guessing it's in Paris. Did they say where it's located? No. Tuscany. It's in Tuscany. It's in Italy. Huh. Oh, it's in Paris, Italy. Oh, okay. Interesting. Anyway. So, yeah. So it's kind of frustrating to listen to the talk, because she not only does she interrupt him, but she makes him lose his whole talk, and then she kind of keeps inserting her own images, and then finally he says, "I guess you just don't want to hear me anymore." But one of the key secrets he points out is that the Bohr orbital momentums that were first used to explain the electron going around the proton are actually this non-commutative torus, the donut, which is this extra force that's non-local, and that explains the electron momentum around the proton that normally in standard quantum physics they're just saying you can't visualize it. It's just statistics and probability, and don't even try to visualize it. So it's nice that he's trying to provide a visualization. So you can see, if you look at this, there's these overlap of the momentum, and this is what that new force is where you have this future and the past overlapping as this like extra Coriolis effect that is the centripetal and centrifugal forces like combined together. And so he calls it the Coriolis momentum as a newly form of energy. And the reason he calls it that is because he's trying to point out that this actually was discovered by Clifford algebra in the 1880s, and so it's before quantum physics was even invented. And yeah, so Basil J. Hiley like figured out the unification of relativity and quantum physics, because he's saying that this is the secret of why Einstein wanted to switch to algebra to explain general relativity. And of course, he's not the only one focusing on non-commutativity. As I mentioned in my previous upload, that this physicists in Portugal and in Brazil, they realize that the non-commutativity explains quantum teleportation, and also the eternal time, the discovery of the time crystal.